people that were at high risk for kidnapping, stuff like that. The reason it works is because it doesn't have a lot of technique. It's about hitting strike points. And the strike points are all balls and nerves. You have, if any of the medical people are in the room and I mess up the names, you can correct me. You have tibia, common peroneal, femoral, don't get excited, radial, median, brachial plex, and scapular. Now these are all balls and nerves that are close to the surface. So when you strike them, it creates, kind of scrambles the brain. It sends the signal up, and it goes back down. And the interesting thing about it is you get what's called the sympathetic reflex. So if you hit the tibia on one side, it's both legs. You will see his knees bend on both sides. The reason is, the signal goes up, hits the brain, when it comes back down, it splits. And you get both reactions. Now the other stuff that we're going to cover is going to have to do with controlling somebody. And somebody her size will be able to get somebody his size out of a chair with her finger, or hold him on the ground with her finger. And it will work. We're going to demonstrate it. And you just got drafted. Okay, so where do y'all want to start?
At the beginning.
Some of the other stuff that you're going to learn, and you did, I actually saw you do a video about this, and it's actually very similar. It's where he's aiming. So the first thing is you're going to move. And he's got a great video in which somebody's got a BB gun, and he just moves out of the way. Because you're going to move faster. You're making the decision to move. You will move before he realizes you've moved and squeezes the trigger, you hope. And so when you move, just knock it out of the way. His reaction is, it's a gun. What is he going to want to do? He's going to bring it back on target. And we're going to turn around so you can see it. When you step, right here, this, hold it as tight as you can. There's nothing there preventing you from spinning it with your finger. If you're using force, you can get it off, and once it's off, you can take it out. And then you've got a hammer. Another method is to turn in and just fire. And again, what you're focusing on here is this wrist. At the base, and at his knuckles. And then with this, raise your hand when it hurts. It doesn't take a lot of pressure, and you can control, and you can move people around with it. And if when you go like that, you put your foot out and bring it this way, he will fall. Okay. We're going to go back through a lot of this stuff. But now with the knife, actually, let me see. Think about a knife. It doesn't matter how good you are. If somebody comes at you with a knife, you're going to get cut. It doesn't matter if you're the best person in the room. But there is the ability to take the knife and to save your life. Now, when somebody comes at you, if they're coming at you like this, you can take it. If they're coming at you like this, you can take it. The thing is, when somebody comes at you like this, you know I'm going to do one of two things. I'm going to stab, or I'm going to slash. This isn't effective. This is not something you really need to worry about. If it happens, don't get me wrong, it's going to hurt, you're going to go to the hospital. But it's probably not life-threatening unless they hit you in the neck. This is very easy. I pointed to this earlier. Okay, and step back. He'll do it again. If you're doing this full speed and you continue stepping back, eventually that nerve system is going to give up. And his hand's going to open. He's going to drop the knife. Your reaction from every movie you've ever seen is to bend down and pick it up. It's going to be his reaction too. You don't want to get on the ground with him, especially if he's built like this. So instead of bending down, wait for him to do it. This requires a lot more attention, and you are definitely going to get cut doing this. But if you don't have an option, step in. Now it's just like the wrist. You've got a pivot point and a place where you're putting focus. And at this point, you're going to cut yourself. Just go like that with the palm of your hand, and it'll come out of his hand. Now, when to run. If the person is coming up and they're doing this is what's called gravitational feed. This is somebody who's been trained with a knife. Do what they say, run away, whatever. Anytime I say run away, somebody says, what if they throw it at you? Most people aren't that good. They're not going to hit you. If they do hit you, they're probably not going to hit you with anything that's sharp. If they do hit you with something that's sharp, it's probably not going to have enough force to go in. If it does have enough force to go in, it's probably not going to hit anything important. So by the time you're all said and done, the odds of that actually happening outside of a movie are very, very slim. Okay. All right, so we've covered some basic weapon stripping. More likely is actual fighting, right? Who remembers Mr. Miyagi? Wax on, wax off, do it.
Sweep the leg.
No, that's sweep the legs. Okay, wax on, you remember this, right? The reason he's got you doing this is when you extend your wrist like this, you're exposing that bone. Put your arm up normally, and then go like that. That's why you wax on and wax off. So if he swings, that's it. Now, you have the bicep, floating rib, and this, the brachial flex, is where you're going to end almost every time, because this will turn some of these lights out. And we're going to just, how out we'll discuss in a second. Go ahead. 1, 2, 3. If he's still standing after that, run like hell. Now, we talked about a slash. Oh, it's the exact same thing. Okay. That's actually good. Can you come up here and I'll get your chair. I'm serious. It'll be fine. Okay. No, don't worry yourself. It's okay. Have a seat. That wait. Have a seat. When you feel the desire to get up, right here, push them together. Raise this up. Seriously? Move for a second. How many times have you had your nose broken?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay, but it does work. Come here. Here, try that again. Okay. Just straight up. Basically try to take this part of his nose and put it on his forehead. That's it. And it doesn't take a lot of force. Okay. Ready to do another one. Good. And on the side. Just press together. Use your hand. Don't be nice. Right there. To the base of his jaw, and then press in and drive it up towards your finger. There you go. It's right at the base of the jaw, in that little hole behind your ear. Now, if you've ever been arrested by cops in New Orleans, you've probably experienced this because they use a ballpoint pen, and that's how they'll hold you down. And you really can't do anything. We're going to do one more, that wrist thing. Alright. Just like that. Because it works on the dynamics of nerves and joints, it doesn't matter how big you are, how strong you are. None of that stuff comes into it. It's all based on what you're capable of doing. Now, a lot of this stuff, you're like, well, what good is this going to do me? How on earth am I going to get the guy to hold his hand like this? What's the first thing that happens in a fight? You're involved. The guy's like, well, you listen to me. It's very applicable. Now, you can go further than that and debate it on whether or not how far to take that, but we'll get there. The other thing, you may not always be protecting yourself, you may be protecting somebody else, especially at some of the events that we go to. Choke. Don't actually choke. Okay. You're really just going to stand there and let him. Come here. Come up behind him. Now, if you loosen up a little bit, you have the tibia right here, right? So you're going to pop. Now, understand, don't actually do these hard. Do them about 10%. Then you're going to follow up with right there. Okay? And get to that point first. If you actually did that full speed, that's exactly what would happen. Drop down. Okay, so if you're in the United States, as we are, you're going to go like this and strike with a closed fist, very important, closed fist on the side of the neck. It's where all of these nerves are exposed at, especially if you've tilted his head over. The reason I'm saying it's very important to strike with a closed fist. Everybody's seen the spinal column, right? One on top of another, on top of another. If you use a knife edge hand, you run the possibility of moving just one of those, which severs the spinal cord. District attorneys refer to that as totally uncool. You will go to prison. Now, if you are not in the United States, you lift and turn. Okay. Are there any questions? Are there any specific situations that you're concerned about? Anything like that? Nothing. From behind. Okay. We don't have a map, but we're going to show you that it can be done. And again, it's physics. It's not strength. If he comes at you from behind, your first thing is you can reach up, grab behind his head. You're going to take your hip below his hip and push back with your butt. That's all there is to it. Now, because you're a female, they're not going to grab you like that. They're going to grab you like this. Go ahead. And you're going to get out of it with 2 fingers. What I want you to do is reach back right here on the seam of his pants. And there's right where the femoral artery, the femoral nerve will be. And just pinch as hard as you can.
Right here?
You have an exposed nerve right here. And if you reach in and grab it, they will let you go, I promise. And if anybody wants to try that, we can do it later. Any other questions?
What if the cops grab you from behind? I've experienced this.
I'm not legally allowed to answer that question. But if by cop you mean state security in another country, not in the United States. Come up here. Now, we're talking about you haven't been cuffed yet?
Correct.
And he's doing this number, right?
Yes, you're correct.
Okay. Now, what is he expecting you to do?
Comply.
Well, yeah. And you're not going to want to do that, right?
Well, no.
For whatever reason, because they're going to kill you, and it's a horrible country. It's not the United States.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay. Go ahead. Now, this is the standard thing. Now, what's he got to do to get away from this? Okay? Cuff me.
Yeah.
Go through the motions.
All right. Well,
You got to reach him, right?
yeah, right.
So you're going to let go. Okay.
All right.
So slowly,
Okay.
as soon as he lets go, you're grabbing his thumb and you're turning. And you're bringing it just like this. I went the other way, but it's the same principle. You go this way, and you bring it around. And you're going straight to that wrist lock. And when you send them down, you kick them and remove the firearm that they would use to kill you because you're not in the United States.
Yes, not in the United States.
Other questions? No, yes, no. What I missed. Make you go. If you're going with that, then your option. He brought up a point. If the guy actually knows what he's doing, he's going to grab both of your thumbs, which is going to make it really hard for you to grab his.
I've been there before.
Okay.
And again, in this banana republic where you're at, this dictatorship in some other country, these guys don't wear knee pads. You're not, as soon as he reaches back and he's focused on something else, you're going to come right there and come down as hard as you can. If you do it right and you hook his kneecap, you'll send it down to around the middle of his shin. It's over. At that point, you can recover his weapon, you can do what you need to escape and save your life. Now, you can't do that in the United States because most times when they're doing this, there's another individual over here ready to shoot you. So, that's for more on one-on-one encounters. Got that?
What about that?
If they have it, I can actually show you how to do. Okay, dog attacks. It's horrible to say, but you actually sacrifice an arm. And the way a dog's body is aligned, you have a spinal column, the head's up here. If you place your head or your arm at the base of his skull while he's biting you, and lift up with the arm he's biting on, he stops biting. He stops doing everything forever. But that's not something we hope anybody has to deal with. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns?
What about someone throwing a punch?
Basic punch. So it's that same thing. It's that same kata. And the interesting thing about that is the same thing, and go home and practice it. It's just 1, 2, 3. The reason it's great is because if you happen to have a knife, it's 1, 2, 3. If you were to have a baton, it's the same thing. It's a very easy system to learn. There's a lot more to it, and one day we'll sit down and work out a date to have a full class where everybody actually gets to try this stuff. But we don't have any mats, we're indoors, and this is probably not the place to do it. Now, Any other questions?
What about two guys on one?
Well, you deal with one at a time. If you get into that situation, most times, if you're dealing with multiple people, your best chance is to get along. In which case, if you're talking about a fight for your life, everybody's been told, you ball up your fist, you hit, what you're going to do is not aim in the face. You're going to aim for their throat, and you're going to open your hand and do all of the stuff I said don't do, as far as hitting with closed fist, you hit the knife edge. You're going to go for the most debilitating move possible as quickly as possible, because you don't want these things to last long, because when you're really doing it, a 15-second fight, by the time you're done, you're winded, you're exhausted, you're ready to take a nap. The other thing I didn't bring up as far as knives, when you get in a fighting stance, get in a stance. Okay. This is all vein. All vein. Ever wonder why the fighting Irish guy has his hands like this? Is because every Mick in the world carries a knife. There's nothing up here that's going to bleed that much. So you want to turn your hands. It's pretty good. Yeah. Okay, so that's going to cover that, unless there's anything else. Like I said, we will sit down. Everybody actually seems pretty interested. We'll sit down and work out a date to have everybody come out, and we'll spend a couple hours, and everybody will actually get to try this stuff. But you can look this stuff up. Bruce Siddle, there's a company called PBCT that teaches it. There's International Security Institute out of Nashville, and they all have YouTube videos online. This isn't learning ninjutsu online. This is basic stuff. And it would probably help. On all of those websites, they're going to have a map, basically, of the human body. And it's going to show all the different strike points. The ones I pointed out are my favorites. Those are my go-to strike points. There are others, like the floating ribs, the bladder. That's a good one you can use in a bar, okay? If you bladder punch somebody in a bar, they're going to urinate themselves. It's just below the belt buckle, and that typically ends the fight. Nobody wants to fight after they've peed themselves. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you.